It has been, but there's been good in it too. You can always find joy in sorrow.
Right,
You have to look.
right,
That's right.
right.
Are you gonna want to?
There is, I know I've seen it.
Hey.
We're on the guest network. Good morning, Elizabeth.
How are you?
Blessed beyond my merit. How are you this morning?
That's not true.
Oh, that is. I'm a Presbyterian. They're all, good morning. Huh. See, this is the other thing. It's like it doesn't recognize. It doesn't even see that there's a,
Get your phone, Charlie.
that there's,
Yeah, one second. It's in my.
that there is a staff network.
May have gotten lost. You want to start with the abandon that and just go with the.
Yeah, yeah. Good morning. Good morning, John.
Morning.
Then, did you have a good birthday?
I did, thank you.
Good.
You don't know, I mean, I thought of you so much in my mind. I had planned on sending now. No. It's like, but unless you actually get it in the mail, you don't know that. I just want you to know.
Hi, good morning.
I've thought of you.
Morning.
Pray for you. Because mine,
It's asking, yeah, it's not the same thing.
that's my mom and dad both had dementia and they're closing out the house.
All right.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And they don't want to give up their house and, you have to kind of,
Fine, Charlie.
but you're not telling them.
It's not saying anything. Here it is. Aha, it's,
Can't do that one. Like that.
yep.
Hold on, I got to clean also.
Put that out to me.
2VXXV6F4J383.
So anyway,
Good morning, Pauline. How are you?
he would just come visit and then he was in another city. And he would,
Pauline, can you hear us?
before, when he would come visit. At that time.
Elizabeth, Diane, can y'all hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can
Okay. Pauline, can you hear us? Yeah, I don't think Pauline can hear us.
Wow. I can remember. Isn't it? It's just so
Hard though.
She just left. That's
Oh,
why.
they have audio
we knew.
Now she's back.
turned on.
Yeah, well, she was sitting right in front.
My dad had passed. About 4 or 5 years ago. But anyway, and she was in.
Good morning, Dorcia.
Morning, everybody. Hey, Mary Elizabeth.
Good morning. How are you?
The fact that you were.
Fine. How are y'all doing?
Doing fine.
I sent the Zoom link to Cedric. I hope he got it.
Thank you.
Stuff.
Mhm.
I bet you I've taken 8 truckfuls to Goodwill. They're not borders. It's just such a big house. It's huge.
Hi, Jenny, I'm Carol.
I've been, and what I asked Dad is like, who's all the cute people for this thing? And he'll say no. Mother would have said yes,
Like for me, like the quesadilla maker, it's like.
that's right. Or pasta. Because we don't need that.
Well, we've got it on. Yeah.
Good to see you. Had it at
I think
And the signal dropped and you have to start over. Start over. So.
Mysteries abounding.
There you go. There you go.
My friend Shelby. It's so, are y'all all working? So
Yes.
she told me she was almost in tears. She was so your note excited. Sending her a note. She's really very alone in the world. I've never loved her.
And and I said, it's very kind of you.
Not surprised. It's
So-
inside, not,
Yeah,
and not
we're
adjacent.
inside and we were in the big back bedroom. I had it all set up. And I realized.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Bedroom.
Pauline, can you hear us?
I can now.
Okay, good.
Didn't have you plugged in.
Got it.
Got my set up.
That, and there's that.
Hey, Rachel. Hey, Pauline. Hey, Elizabeth. Hey, Diane.
Hey.
Kathy, you slipped in without my seeing you.
Darn, I need to try harder.
It is.
Good morning.
Oh, you can bet I would have told on her.
I don't know. Does he have
I was
that?
hoping my buddy
We
would
see the wisdom of my system.
Yeah.
With him, but
Does he have that?
no, he would.
I had stuff I just did deliver different places and I thought, oh, I don't know. Actually, I popped right in at 10, I think. My kids, but still, they need it. Boy, is this a tough lesson today. It actually is. I don't have myself or somebody acclimated on how
It really
to do
can
things.
be.
But but it really improved my prayer life because I see her have so
And
much
so-
more. I got a count Christmas sheet. More, it's like, I haven't risked that out of your way.
Yes, it is. No problem.
It's like, okay, she's a nurse now, so it's like the new nurse had to, it's like, no, what do you find mom anyway?
Yeah. No,
And Kathy,
we're good about taking.
oh, my pleasure. Hope you're enjoying yours as much as I am mine.
The time he passed out, he was working on the.
Does anybody need a handout?
Okay,
Let me.
I need you.
Like he's about to.
That's right.
I can't write it.
By the way, I've made.
And you can put the number down and
I've been that. Everybody like.
Okay.
I haven't figured mine out.
Yeah, I just.
Julia, good morning. It's good to see your name, even if we can't see your face.
Good morning.
There you are. I didn't mean to exert video pressure.
You're a teacher. Yes, you did.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Right.
Have you perfected the look yet? I bet she.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The one that was just Joanne.
Bless her heart, one of my staff, was it Friday? She just looked at me and went, and walked away.
About what?
So just the look I gave her about something and she just went, okay, and walked off.
Had a good time. I got it. Words not required.
Unless, if you're a teacher, unless you can perfect the look that melts steel.
Yeah, you're doomed. Yeah, you're doomed. Yep, yep, yep.
Yes, you have to do it. One of my friends is
And what,
teaches in college, like you, and she just said, Kathy, we do the same job. Mine are just taller. Some of the stuff she told me that her kids would ask her, said, a college student ask you that? She's, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
so do veterinary students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But it's just,
professional students.
these
Like-
are adult people. They're in their 20s and they,
Yeah.
some of the things she shared with me, they asked her, she's a biology teacher, and it's like, no. I expect little kids to see something on TV and come and ask me about it.
Yeah. It's amazing what they do.
Elizabeth, Mary Elizabeth,
Yes, Pauline.
you know that nurses can do that look too.
Oh, yes, I do. I was raised by one
Mm,
and two of her sisters were that. One was a, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Miss Kathy?
My pleasure.
It's 10:05.
Right. Shall we pray? Most Holy Father, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to come together and learn more about your word. And thank you for Mary Elizabeth's guidance and helping us to do that. Please bless those that are here and those that would like to be here and cannot attend in person. We also want to lift up those people around the world and locally too that are hurting so badly from war and famine and floods and fire and all the problems that seem to be going along in the world. Father, we just thank you for all of our many blessings. Please bring this lesson to us for our understanding, and thank you for everything. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
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 Hi.
I'll leave it to the class. Do you get a pass since it's I'm back?
Here. Get the pass.
Okay. Okay. You need a handout, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
here.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So since the last time we were here, we have a little grandson in the team now.
Yay.
Last Sunday.
Last Sunday, as a matter of fact, early bird, but healthy. And then Zola and Austin have a little boy. His name will be Charlie, after her daddy, coming along September 1st.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't know that was gonna ever be possible.
So
It's
thank the
just-
Lord for that.
Yeah.
Wasn't even ovulating.
Well,
Well, obviously she did.
Yeah. Somebody ovulated.
Yeah. So, anyway,
Well, we have a challenging passage before us
Amen.
today, don't we? Somebody who's here. Oh, Cedric. Welcome, well, he's still connecting to audio.
Awesome.
I think we should give him a.
Yes, it's really, oh, we don't know where he is. Bless
We don't
you.
know who he is, so
Cedric, we're glad you're here.
he only gets a pass because he's not. in
Right.
this.
that's right.
So let's, before we ask too much of ourselves with this tough passage here in Matthew 24 and 25, let's kind of get back in the swing of things, remind ourselves we're thinking about these themes that Matthew introduced, of course, in the nativity narratives. He developed through the ministry narratives, and he really is bringing to a culmination in the passion narratives and the final Easter narrative. So let's just kind of remember these passages, these themes. And also I want us to really get back into and remember we want to be reading this in context. Remember what the passage that we ended with last week was about. So the last thing that we looked at last week, right? Jesus is declaring, is he saying, yay, everything's going great for you scribes and Pharisees? Is that what he's saying? What's the big word he uses again and again and again? Whoa. And he uses this several times throughout chapter 23. Whoa. Does that mean good times are coming, or what kinds of times are coming?
Tough times.
That tough times are coming. Yeah. And then the final little section, that chapter 23, verses 37 to the end. To whom is Jesus speaking in those verses?
Israel or Jerusalem?
To Jerusalem. Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem. And talks about killing the prophets, stoning those who are sent to you. Right? Jesus is hip. Jesus knows what this town is and knows what he can expect of it. But is his comment then followed with, and by golly, I'm going to nail you for it? What does he say to Jerusalem?
Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the name of the Lord.
That's what he expects Jerusalem to say. Yes. What is it that he expresses towards them? Is it animosity and vengeance? And
No,
what
how
does
he
he
longs,
say?
how he longs to gather them under his wings.
Exactly, this beautiful, beautiful feminine image of the mother hen getting her little babies, her little chicks underneath her to protect them from their enemies. So it is this protective, loving image. And he says in verse 38, behold, your house is forsaken and desolate. And it's in that context then that this next difficult passage about the hard times that are coming to Jerusalem and to Judea, it's that context that leads to this. So let's think quickly through this, just review quickly. What are some things from that chunk that shows Jesus as fulfillment of Torah? You can pull out your handout from last week and read if you want. I'm not going to answer the question for you.
Well, even the end, for I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed who comes in the name of the Lord. So the fact that we're not going to see him, that he's going to go away.
Mm-hmm. How is that a fulfillment of Torah? I agree. I think that is.
Trying to think back to Torah, maybe.
Simply the word. Well, where did this phrase, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, come from?
The Baptist.
In here.
From Psalms, right?
Oh, okay.
Right? It's from Psalms, right? So, and he is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. How does this passage show Jesus as sovereign over his creation and over his church? Don't think too hard.
Well, he's a protector, so.
Yeah. That's awesome. Exactly. What does this passage tell us about the kingdom of heaven? Perhaps in negative terms, what is the kingdom of heaven not like?
Everybody won't be there. That's not what you meant.
Okay. I don't know. That's not my decision. That's God's decision. I'm not an authority over that. But you are right. Jesus issues some warnings, right? What kind of behavior is not compatible with the kingdom of God?
Sin.
Hypocrisy and wickedness.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Setting these high standards that you yourself don't live up to, but you make everybody else live up to and look down on everybody else, right? Tithing mint and cumin, but forgetting justice and mercy and faith, like in verse 23, right? Verse 25, you cleanse the outside of the cup, but the inside's full of extortion and rapacity. Looking good on the outside, but yeah, the truth is something very different.
Yeah, whitewashed tombs.
Yeah, exactly. This is not compatible with the kingdom of heaven. The church as the eschatological covenant community. In other words, by contrast, what are we supposed to be? What are we supposed to say? Don't think too hard. You've already said it. What's the last line in the chapter? In chapter 23, verse 39.
I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
The church is supposed to be about the business of proclaiming, right? Jesus is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. That is a covenant statement. That is a fancy word, eschatological statement. It's a statement about where history is going. And what did this passage say about discipleship? don't think too hard.
Well, he's not going to come back until the whole gospel is preached to the whole world.
Well, we see that today. Yes, we see that today. Yeah. What is discipleship like?
It's tough. You're gonna.
Mhm. What do you do if you're a disciple? Do you
follow
tithe?
Christ.
Say that again, Cedric?
You follow Christ. You live and love as he did.
You do. And again, look at verse 23. You tithe mint and dill and cumin, and you haven't done the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. So if you're a disciple, you're concerned about the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. Now, you may also want to tithe that mint and that cumin. You also want to handle those details, but you're going to remember the weightier matters of the law, which of course, again, Jesus as fulfillment of Torah, right? Jesus fulfilled all this. So today we move into an apocalyptic passage that comes on the heels of these woes, these laments. And I point out to you, what is the very first phrase of chapter 24? What does Jesus do? Those
He
very
left the
first-
temple.
He left the temple. That is an ominous phrase, if ever there was one.
And he was going away.
And yes, it's an omen. It's a foreshadowing. It's also a word of judgment. Right. He is leaving the temple. So he's going away, and bless their hearts, the disciples act like tourists. Wow. It was like the first time I went to New York. Look at all the big buildings. Country comes to town. Bless their hearts. And Jesus says, yeah, not nearly as permanent as you think they are. Right? And so then they're on the Mount of Olives, which is to the east of the city. So they've left the city. They've gone over to the Mount of Olives. Presumably they're in the Garden of Gethsemane. It was an olive press. It was an olive garden and an olive press. Hanging out there. And so it's just them, and the disciples ask, so when is all this going to happen? And it leads into this apocalyptic section here in chapter 24. So we need to take a moment and understand what an apocalypse is. And it's important because you have to understand the genre of what you're reading to understand what you're reading, right? If you were to pick up a murder mystery novel and read it as though it was a historical account, you would miss the whole point, right? The suspense, the twists and the turns, the deception that the author pulls on you. Similarly, if you read a piece of history like it's a mystery action thriller, you're going to be going, well, where's the plot? And you're going to miss the point. You've got to understand the genre. Am I reading poetry? Am I reading history? Am I reading a parable? What am I reading here? And it's important to understand what an apocalypse is and what apocalyptic literature is. So let's start with what the word apocalypse means.
Complete devastation.
Very typical 20th century American definition. Right? We all saw Apocalypse Now, right? I love the smell of napalm in the morning, right? But that's not at all what the word actually means. The word just means an unveiling.
Oh, okay.
Or it could be translated revelation, right? You hear it in there, veil. You hear the word veil in revelation. So lifting the veil. It's a seeing of something that was hidden. Martin Luther, for example, understood communion as an apocalypse, an unveiling of the presence of Christ. seeing something that you don't normally appreciate. And it's a common literature form, apocalyptic literature, starting in about the 2nd century BC in Palestine into this AD 1st century. It was a largely Jewish literary form. It is generally born of oppression. When the world looks really, really bad, and the author of an apocalypse is trying to communicate to the reader what Thomas Merton, the great Trappist, 20th century Trappist monk, said, that no amount of despair on our part can change reality. And it's to try to reveal the reality of the sovereignty of God, even in the face of terrible, terrible oppression. So, for example, the book of Daniel, written under the Greek rule of Antiochus Epiphanes, and he's trying to expunge Judaism, right? So there's this desire to show that even though this political power looks completely in control, it's really God in control. The book of Revelation alludes a lot to Nero, who, of course, basically exterminated the Christians in the city of Rome. Things look bad. They look really bad. Rome is completely in control. But what is revealed, and everybody, this is important aside, the name of the book is Revelation, not Revelations.
Yes.
Because the Greek word, the name of the book is Apocalypse. The apocalypse of John, the revelation of John. So what is revealed to him is that Nero's not really in control. God is in control.
When I looked up the definition
Mhm.
of apocalypse, it says the complete final destruction of the world as described in the book of Revelation.
That is wrong.
Okay, well, that's what it said.
I know.
thought it was interesting, referred to Revelation.
Yeah, it's become so, people have totally twisted the meaning of the word because because of particular interpretation of the book of Revelation. Namely, that the book of Revelation describes the end of the world. Oh my, did she just say the book of Revelation doesn't necessarily describe the end of the world? Yes, she did just. did. But
Yeah, I read
an
the same
apocalypse-
definition.
Yeah, it's again, right? That has become how we understand the word in English. The word is a Greek word, and we have to let that Greek word speak for itself. Robert Duvall does not get to define the word apocalypse.
Okay, so apocalypse means,
An unveiling.
right,
An
okay.
unveiling. And it's a literary form, and there's some hallmarks of the literature. There is always a messenger who is the one who unveils for the learner. Remember, so think about the apocalypse of John, right? John is visited by an angel. An angel shows him this, and the Lord shows him this, and then I saw this. There is somebody that helps the visionary see the unveiling. It does usually portray final, profound events as imminent. It is usually pessimistic in the sense of this. It's pessimistic about the current state of the world. The world is so broken. There's no fixing it from the inside. It's going to have to be fixed by a dramatic inbreaking by God into this world. Usually involves judgment, and it requires, this sort of supernatural resolution to the problems of the world. Christianity is an apocalyptic religion because we believe that the world is broken, and we believe that God intervened dramatically into history in the person of Jesus Christ to fix the problem. That really began to be a big part of discussion, of scholarly discussion within the faith, starting really in the 17 and 1800s. This realization of how heavily we as a faith are informed by that apocalyptic worldview. Yes, ma'am.
So I actually wrote my master's thesis on Uncle Tom's Cabin and the apocalypse. And but one of the things that seems like is always a part of this is that there's this hope that happens at the end. There's restoration of order, restoration of
Absolutely.
goodness. And
Absolutely.
if you can just survive the darkness,
Horror.
there's good things coming.
Right. Absolutely. They are ultimately hopeful texts. Again, it is that things look horrible. But if you just take away this veil that the world creates, that you can't see reality, you'll see that God is sovereign. And that is the ultimate statement of hope.
Mary Elizabeth,
Yes, ma'am.
in my estimation, one of the biggest unveilings was when, after the crucifixion, the veil was torn in half.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, the hope that we can enter into the Holy of Holies.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. That and that in this event, in this surprising event, what many Jews who had an apocalyptic worldview expected was God's angelic army to come and overthrow Rome. But instead, in this event of the death and then resurrection of Jesus, that is the unveiling of the power of God. Not at all what anybody expects. Right? The other thing important about apocalyptic literature, as you allude, is that it's about getting through this time. It's about enduring, and it's about how to live in the meantime. This passage, chapter 24, is actually drawn from Mark 13, the first written apocalypse of the New Testament. And I want to point you to a particular verse in Mark 13. Disciples want to know when all this is going to happen. And I'm going to say something I really, really want you to hear me. If you're doing the same thing, if you approach apocalyptic literature, when does all this happen? What does all this mean about the end time? When is Jesus going to come again? Are these the signs of the times? You're doing the same thing the disciples were doing, which is missing the point. And that's why the disciples asked that question, because that's what we do. We want to know when. I want to know when the plumbing's going to work again, and when the cable's going to work again, and when the traffic's going to get better. I want to know, right? But Jesus wants to teach us how to live through that. So look at chapter 13 in Mark, verse 9. And it's important. You have the KJV? Please read the KJV for us.
Just 9.
Yes.
But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils and in the synagogues, and ye shall be beaten, and ye shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them.
Thank you.
That's really different.
Yes.
And the NIV.
Yes. Most translations say, Charlene, what does your translation say?
It's whitewashed.
Yeah.
You must be on your guard. You will be handed over to
Right.
the local councils and flogged in the synagogues. On account of me, you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them.
Thank you. Be on your guard. That is a very different statement than the KJV and the RSV. Take heed to yourselves. You worry about how you live. don't get wrapped up in all this other stuff. Because yeah, you're going to be hauled up in front of councils. You are. There's going to be real persecution. It's important to know the context here, the life situation of this passage for Jerusalem. In AD 70, the Romans will say, that's it. We have had it with you Jews and your rebellions and your refusals to acknowledge Caesar and all your picayune little things about no graven images, and you won't work on Sabbath, and we've had it. And they will blow up the temple. They will destroy Jerusalem. And when I say blow it up, they will pour oil into that limestone, so much oil, it will permeate the stones of the temple, and then they will set it on fire. So that oil inside the stones will catch on fire, and the building will blow up from the inside out. Until very recent times, you could find pieces of the temple up to a mile away. They destroyed the city. They exiled all Jews from Judea. They had it. Probably Mark is written when everybody sees that coming.
Mary
The armies-
Elizabeth,
Yes, ma'am.
I know we can get lost in the weeds.
Yes,
We can have a whole study on this. But is this the beast with the iron teeth?
We're
the
not
Roman
even going
Empire?
to talk about it. We're not even going to. No, it's no in the weeds. No, not the point. Take
Okay.
heed to yourselves. Be disciples.
Okay.
Good try.
So the context for Jerusalem when Mark is written is probably that they see all this coming. Probably by the time Matthew and Luke write, it has already happened.
Jesus pointed out that not even one stone will be on another stone.
Right, and that's actually what
Right.
happened. That is what happened. I mean, it was just, I mean, you're right, you can go to the Western Wall now, that's it, that's all that's left, right? So Jesus overstated it a little bit, which is typical of apocalyptic proclamation, right? And it's also important then for the life of the church to understand the life situation of the church at this point. So the temple has been destroyed, and the church is not focused in the temple anymore. Remember, for some time, right, the earliest Christians continue to worship in the temple there in Jerusalem, right? And when Jerusalem is destroyed, a group of Pharisees of the Hillel school escaped to Jamnia. The Roman general took pity on them. They said, look, we're just a bunch of old religious guys. We just want to save our sacred text. Can we just please leave? And he said, yes, sure, no problem. So they escaped to Jamnia, and a community of Christians escaped the city as well. And of course, if I didn't have to think of the name of the city they went to, I would know it. So they've escaped. So the destruction of the temple is in many ways no longer, it's not some impending threat. But now the church is saying, well, when is Jesus going to come again? Because there's persecution in Rome. There's social persecution throughout the empire. Now it's really concerned, when is Jesus going to come back? And of course, the earliest Christians thought, did they think it was going to take over 2,000 years?
No.
Right.
They thought it was in their lifetime.
Right, exactly. He's coming right back. It's coming right back. So we got to get ready. And we really would like it to be sooner than later. That's the life situation for the church when Matthew writes. So let's look at this little apocalypse. And I want to read a verse to you, a couple of verses, and I want you to hear how most people read it, and I want you to hear how I think it should be read. In verse 6, right, Jesus is answering the disciples. And I think this is how most of us hear these verses. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. We're in chapter 24, verse 6.
Of Matthew.
Matthew. Sorry. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All this is but the beginning of the birth pangs. I think that is how we generally read it. That is wrong. Remember that Jesus has a very biting sense of humor. Remember what he pulled with the scribes and the Pharisees? Show me a coin. Right? He is a really sardonic wit. Well, you want to know by what authority I preach? Well, let me ask you, by what authority did John preach? You don't know? Well, then. Oh, well, then. I'm not going to tell you by what authority I preach. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with. What I'm about to read, I think, is far closer to how Jesus would have said this. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not alarmed. For this must take place. The end is not yet. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there'll be earthquakes and famines in various places. All this is a beginning of birth pangs. It's like, guys, what are you talking about? I mean, they're living on a circle that has earthquakes all the time. Have you been looking at the news from Syria and Turkey?
Yeah.
Right.
How many wars have come through that little neck of land that is Israel? And rumors of wars. He's like, what? I honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if they were in a Barnes and Noble in the religion section, and like there's a copy of Hal Lindsey, and he picks it up and he's like, guys, really? He's trying to tell them, don't weird out on this time frame. Okay. You just live the way you're supposed to. So I'm going to walk y'all through the little apocalypse and how this shows our themes. So Jesus as fulfillment of Torah. There is a phrase that Jesus uses of himself repeatedly. For example, in chapter 24 of Matthew, verse 30, then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and glory. And he'll send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they'll gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to another. So that phrase, the Son of Man, this is a really important phrase that Jesus uses of himself throughout his ministry. And it's an ambiguous term in some ways. It can just mean me. It's just a sort of elliptical way of speaking of yourself. And Jesus seems to use it that way once when he says, the Son of Man doesn't even have a place to lie his head. He's saying, I don't even have a permanent home. I'm just an itinerant preacher, right? But it can be a very theologically laden term.
Tell me that scripture again. Yeah, I'm
sorry. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Just go to Bible Gateway and say Son of Man, and it'll give you every reference. Yeah.
Thank you.
But he often uses this term of himself. It actually comes from Daniel, chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him, and to him was given dominion and glory and kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. And Daniel's kind of disturbed by all this. He doesn't understand it. This is some sort of, in Daniel's understanding, a quasi-divine figure in whom God vests all power and authority. Jesus is appropriating that term to himself, because he's using that term in his own little apocalyptic speech here. He's very clearly linking self as the Son of Man back with chapter 23, verse 39. You will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. He very clearly understands those as linked. You with me?
Say that again.
He very clearly understands Son of Man as he's using it, as Daniel used it, and applying to himself because of the end of chapter 23, verse 39. You're not gonna see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And he uses the term Son of Man, clearly alluding to the book of Daniel.
I wonder how much of this is Jesus knowing that he's saying very hard things
Yeah.
and trying to find a way to hook it onto something that they know.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
it's something you know you can identify with.
Right.
Sort of pull that into
Right.
this to help you understand.
And at the same time, avoiding their wrong-headed messianic expectations.
Mary Elizabeth, didn't
Yeah.
the teachers of the law, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, really hate it when he referred to Son of Man as himself?
No, because it's an ambiguous term. It could just mean me.
Oh, okay.
In fact, Jesus seems to have been very rhetorically savvy to use that term.
Got it.
He does not refer to himself as Messiah ever directly.
Mm-hmm.
He'd have been toast right there. Now, or more likely, he'd have been laughed at. Yeah, right. Sure you are. Yeah, sure you are. We've heard that before. So he very intentionally uses this ambiguous term. Jesus as sovereign over his creation and his church. How many imperatives can you find in chapter 24, right? An imperative, a command statement. Do such and so. Can you find some?
Tell us, beware.
Pray.
Yeah. Flee,
You must not.
pray, learn, know, watch, be ready. He is in charge. He is issuing commands. The kingdom of heaven. Let's look at chapter 24. Somebody read for us verses 27 and 28.
Matthew 24.
Yes, Matthew 24, verses 27 and 28.
Okay. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather.
Thank you. Okay, right. I've tried to think of a comparable, we would say where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
He is rebutting all of these, oh, we're going to look for wars. We're going to look for rumors of wars. He's like, no, when the Son of Man comes, you'll know it. Same way you can stand, and you can, if you've ever been to Israel, you can see that lightning a long way off.
It's going to be so cool.
When we were in Lebanon, I remember looking there up on Mount Hermon and thinking, well, I can understand why the ancients thought that was a god of thunder coming across the mountain. I really can.
It's because it's so flat.
Well, at that point, you're looking west towards the sea and you see the lightning coming over the mountain. You're low, and so right? But then looking east, yeah, everything's flat. And you're in the Syrian desert, for crying out loud. You can see all the way to Turkey for, you know. I was thinking too. So you can see a long way. It's obvious. There's no subtlety about it. And not only that, you know, if there's a body, what's going to be circling over it?
Vultures.
Vultures. Everybody knew that. That was obvious. And the vultures could see that body. Winston Churchill talks about when he escaped from a prison camp during the Boer War, that rather humorously, that there was a vulture that took entirely too much interest in him. Yeah. You don't know what's happening before it happens. It's going to be real obvious. So don't get all into this signs. Bless his heart, Sir Isaac Newton thought that his most important work that he ever wrote was his mathematical interpretation of the book of Revelation. Bless his heart. Yeah, bless his heart. That God had written the book of Revelation, waiting for someone smart enough to invent calculus and come along and interpret it. You know. Somebody read for us Matthew 24:36.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Go
Day
ahead.
and hour unknown, but about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father.
Thank you. And you can almost hear him saying, why are you asking me? I don't know. And you're not going to know. And my buddy Gabriel and Michael and all them angels in heaven, they don't know. Don't bother.
Yeah.
It comes at a time that no one knows.
But when it does come, we will all.
We will all know, right? Paul is real clear. We'll be caught up in the clouds, okay? It's going to be real evident. And it's not going to be some people, you know, calling each other on the phone and saying, I don't know, what do you think?
Or social media.
Right. Oh my gosh. Heaven save us, right? Heaven save us. All right. The church as the eschatological covenant community. The community that is living into where God is taking history. So chapter 24, verse 9. What's it going to be like? Don't kid yourself. Somebody read that for us. Chapter 24, verse 9.
Then they will hand you over to be tortured and will put you to death. And you will be hated by all nations because of my name.
Thank you. There will be persecution. Don't make any bones about it. Brothers and sisters, we think of martyrdom as something that happened in the Colosseum. In preparation for the great Jubilee of 2000, His late Holiness Pope John Paul II prioritized an expansion of the recognized martyrology of the Roman Catholic Church. Diane, you probably know about this. It was very important to him to acknowledge our brothers and sisters who have died for the faith recently. After all, the 20th century was the bloodiest century ever on this planet. There were more martyrs who died in the 20th century than all 19 previous centuries combined. If you want to know more, go to the Vatican's webpage and read the martyrology, and you will read how some of our brothers and sisters have died, whether it's in concentration camps, gulags, assassinations, beheadings. It gets worse. Be in prayer for our brothers and sisters who are persecuted for the sake of the gospel. And then 13 and 14, but he who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached throughout the world as a testimony to all nations. Then the end will come. Now, a lot of people think that if we hurry up and we preach the gospel everywhere by 2030, and I kid you not, a lot of organizations have picked that by 2030, then Jesus will come back. No, his point here is you can put to death as many of us as you want, and the gospel is still going to be preached. The darkness will not overcome it. And then discipleship. Chapter 24, verses 42 through 44. Watch, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming, but know this, that if the householder had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have watched and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. You don't know, so you better be ready all the time. And this should all be read in the context that Jesus' time is at hand. He is about to be put in front of a court, a couple of kangaroo courts, and flogged and executed. So it's a critical passage that's very often misunderstood and misapplied. He tells really 4 parables, and I will leave it to you to work through this. But these all talk about how to live, right? They don't talk about, okay, there'll be this sign, there'll be that sign, and then you'll check the auguries and you'll cast the die. It's all about just be ready. The bridesmaids, be ready. Make use of the gifts you're given and go about kingdom work. That's it. That's what we're supposed to be thinking about. Take heed to yourselves. Thank you for your patience. We ran a little long. I know this is a hard section, but I wanted to get you through it. It's important for understanding the cross.
Thank you.
Next, it gets easier.
This was much heavier than I remembered thinking of it that way before.
Yeah, that's the other thing. When you make it just sort of this prediction, you really sell it short. So, yeah.
I got lost in the weeds.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, it is. Sure.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Glad to have you, David. I feel more like a sheep now than ever. Well, and it's bad.
You didn't, one thing on there that you didn't finally explain was separating the sheep versus the goats.
Oh, yeah.
So why?
Yeah, thank you. Because sheep and goats fight differently. Sheep to fight, they ram each other, boom, and they put their heads down. A goat he'll stand up on his back legs and then go. So the goat is going to get gut punched every time. So every shepherd would know you have to separate the sheep from the goats, or you're going to have a bunch of beat up goats in the morning. Have a great week, y'all.
I'm glad you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.